Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting. Before we call the official meeting to order, we do have a joint meeting with the Long Range Planning Committee, and they will be providing us with an update on the Housing Action Plan. Deputy Prescott.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time this evening, especially when we're getting the budget process started. We really appreciate it. I'm pleased to have a lot of committee members here this evening. I'm just going to go through and ask each committee member to quickly just introduce themselves. I know a lot of us know each other, but just in case, Jean.
Jean Saunders from Age Friendly Saco.
Tracy Desjardins, Director of Economic Development.
Melissa Field.
Everything.
Sandy Gay.
Adam Causey. I also serve as the Long Range Planning Director for the town of Falmouth.
I'm Matt Provenzel, the chair of the Saco Planning Board.
And Matt and Sandy are our co-chairs. They're being modest, and we also have some staff in the back of the room that sit on this committee that just don't come up and sit with us, but they're very supportive throughout the whole project, all the projects we do. So a quick update on what we're working on as a committee is both the Portland Road Master Plan and the Housing Action Plan. The Housing Action Plan, we entered into a contract with VHB to complete. We had public listening sessions. You're going to hear a little bit about the recap of the work done to date to get us here. This is a grant-funded initiative, so we did get a grant awarded to us to do this Housing Action Plan. And tonight, really, what I'm asking us to look at are the strategies of the draft. I have sent the draft Housing Action Plan itself for what we have so far out to the council a couple of times via email. We also sent it along to Economic Development and got some comments from the commission members, and LRPC members have seen some initial drafts. But tonight what I'm asking us to do is really look at Luke's presentation. Luke is our consultant from VHB, and to dive into the strategies and to give us high-level thoughts on what you want us to look at going forward, so we can be sure to have a good public comment process. After the presentation this evening, we will have a 14-day public comment period that'll be open to members of the public. We will take all that feedback, and then we will help redirect the final steps of the plan with that feedback. And then you will see a final version of the plan after the Long Range Planning Committee sees it for adoption probably in the summer. So with that, I'd like to, unless the co-chairs have anything to add here, I'd like to hand it off to Luke Mitchell to join us and give the presentation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Luke from VHB. This is the second public presentation I've had to do today. The first one was at 9 a.m. in my daughter's first grade classroom about city planning. And the kids had a lot of great comments and questions, so hoping we can match that energy here tonight. But yep, as Emily mentioned, I'm from VHB, and we've been working on this housing action plan for the past year or so. So thanks for having me. I have some slides to walk through. We'll try to make quick work of the upfront pieces about the process and some of the existing conditions analysis, and really focus on the strategies that we're recommending, because it would be great to get some real-time feedback and input on those strategies as we've written them, so that we can really nail them when we finalize the plan. Okay, so can you guys see slides? Not really, but here's a slide on our process. It's a 5-step process. We initiated the project again around a year ago. Been coordinating ever since with city staff. Last spring there was a round of stakeholder engagement and public outreach that we facilitated to get feedback from the community. Then it was really focusing on assessing Saco's housing needs, and then the last step is to draft the housing action plan. And where we're at in this process is very close to the end. We have a full final draft. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to take a look. The community engagement that I mentioned took place over the course of 3 listening sessions in addition to some targeted stakeholder outreach. Here's some photos from those events. Some key themes that emerged from those discussions. First, something that we see in most of the communities we work in is that the housing inventory, due to slow production, is increasingly misaligned with the actual housing needs of the community. Second, housing production is needed for many sectors of the population, including low-income households, but also workforce households and smaller households, which is something that you see underrepresented in a lot of markets. And that lastly, new housing goals for Saco must be aligned with the city's other goals, which are manifold, I think, at this point. You've done a lot of great planning work in recent years, so that those housing goals need to be aligned with those, as well as where the infrastructural systems exist to support that housing. Here's just a quick look at the structure of the plan. It has an executive summary and an introduction. It summarizes the community engagement that we facilitated. It provides the planning context, including describing the structure of decision-making here in Saco. Provides that housing needs assessment, which really looks at unit types and things like that. Talks about barriers to housing creation, and then ends in a set of strategies which are broken down into 3 categories. I'll get more into that. A very high-level overview. There's a lot to be optimistic about with respect to housing in Saco. First is that, as evidenced by the sustained growth that you've seen, many people recognize that Saco is a desirable place to live. You know, not every community can say that, so that's a very positive thing. Second, the housing stock that you have compared to similar communities is actually quite diverse in terms of the unit mix. So more diverse than numerous other suburban coastal communities, which we go into a little more in depth in the plan. But it reflects a mix of unit types, of units built in different areas of growth. So you have a real diversity there. And then lastly, there's a strong basis to strategically accommodate more growth for an increasingly diverse population. Just a few points on the housing needs coming out of the housing needs assessment that we prepared. First, the prevalence of seniors as a share of the population is increasing, and the prevalence of youth is decreasing. It's something that's not surprising. We see that pretty much most of the places that we work in New England, and that has a profound impact on housing needs. Second, household incomes are increasing and poverty is decreasing, and yet still a third of the households in Saco are cost burdened. Average household size decreasing, right? Okay, so next, approximately 12% of the housing units in Saco consist of studios and 1-bedroom units. Compare that to the percentage of households that consist of a single person, which is almost a third. So in other words, you have smaller units are underrepresented as part of your housing stock. And then lastly, approximately, building on that last one, approximately 43% of housing units consist of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units. And yet 70% of all of the households in Saco consist of only 1 or 2 people. So that really speaks to that misalignment between the needs and the housing stock. Also, housing costs are rising very quickly, which is true throughout New England, but certainly true in Saco too, where the median home value increased by 50% between 2018 and 2023. Over the same time period, rents went up by almost 25%. Currently, Saco has 15 affordable housing developments with 482 housing units that are formally maintained as a deed-restricted housing supply. That's 5% of Saco's total housing supply. So with the implication being that that could be increased with positive impact. So that's the build-up really to get to the next series of slides that I have on the housing action strategies that we're putting forth as recommendations for your consideration. As I mentioned, there's 3 categories. First is regulatory tools, second is processes and programs, and then third is financial tools and funding sources. So I'll jump right into it on the regulatory tools. First one is about zoning dimensions and uses. Often with housing plans, a lot of the recommendations come down to the detailed mechanics of the zoning ordinance and how it's written and things that could be tweaked within the zoning. So the idea here is to modernize zoning within targeted growth areas. First of all, to better align with the comprehensive plan that you've recently prepared and to unlock additional housing capacity. This could include revisiting the dimensional standards that exist in there, allowable uses and density thresholds. So in other words, really just a targeted look at the zoning and how it relates to housing production. With the goal of enabling a broader mix of housing types in appropriate locations. In the plan, we have more detailed snapshot of what those updates to the zoning could include. Second is about workforce and affordable housing. The idea is to strengthen not only zoning, but other policy tools that either require or incentivize the production of affordable and workforce housing, and expanding and refining mechanisms such as density bonuses. In other words, you can unlock greater density if you include more affordable units, and special permit provisions to achieve more consistent affordability outcomes. So there's it's not one tool, it's a set of tools, the toolbox that can be considered, and the question is what's Saco's appetite for that? Every community is different. In the plan, we speak about different provisions, so definitely worth taking a look at and considering each one of them. Third is on resilience. So aligning with the climate adaptation and action plan that you have, there's specific goals and implementation strategies in there. But really it's to take a look at, what are the expectations of new construction within those flood-prone areas, specifically for housing. There's a variety of great design features that you can use to boost the resilience of housing in those markets, which will help to keep the property values sustained, as well as, of course, to protect future homeowners and renters. Okay. Fourth is on parking and what parking requirements you place on applicants who are either building new housing or flipping older buildings and doing adaptive reuse to keep housing in existing buildings. With the idea being, of course, that you can reduce the requirements for how much parking is meant to be built. That can really do a lot for reducing the barrier to new housing production. And you want to do it strategically, not in a way that's going to jeopardize the future viability of the project because there won't be any parking, or to flood the neighborhood with parking. But certainly if you look at most zoning bylaws and ordinances from the past, they have very strict parking requirements, and that's the trend is to reduce the amount of parking that's required for new projects. And you can use it strategically to incentivize the type of housing that's most needed. So jumping into process and programs. First one is priority review for affordable housing. This is probably the most specific recommendation that we have, but it's basically to afford priority to affordable housing applications when it comes to review in front of the city's boards, so that you can get on the agenda more quickly. Simply a way of reducing that permitting timeline. It can actually be, it's a really important consideration for the developers of affordable housing. How much time can they really risk spending to get that project permitted? So again, a very specific recommendation there. Next one in process and programs is to permit multifamily by right. That's another trend in planning, is to take things that used to require a special permit or conditional permit and to shift them into the by right bucket. And that's really to streamline the approval process, reduce project risk, and again, make it more enticing for developers and investors to come in and build multifamily housing. Again, it's a question of what's your appetite for things like that, and whether or not it will be attractive or by the community and supported. But it can certainly go a long way. Next is, this is another trend that you see, which is for the city to offer pre-approved plans for accessory dwelling units, which can really help homeowners who are interested in building an ADU. You have a set of sort of designs that are pre-approved that they know that they're going to be able to just go ahead and build it because it's something that the city's already voiced their support for because it hits the different design standards that you have. So that's something that you could do that would really help to get that strategic ADU infill that you see really proliferating throughout the region. Next is a housing production tracking system. This is really more about the technology that you're using as a city, that you can create a dashboard, both for decision makers, but also in the interest of transparency, maybe something that could be hosted online so that the community members could access it. And that's a dashboard that can really keep track of Saco's housing supply. And there's different ways that can be accomplished. We're working with the city of Worcester, Massachusetts right now on building out a new dashboard tool for how to do that. But really it takes those affordable units, both affordable units that the city controls, but also private sector or privately owned and operated affordable housing, and it really helps to collectivize or socialize the conversation about the city's goals and how far and the progress that you're making. So that's kind of an exciting one that is worthy of further exploration. Next, natural resource sensitive development standards. And this is to ensure natural resource protection is integrated into new development through strong site design standards. But really, this is a bit of a nuanced recommendation. I encourage you to read it in the plan. It's about making sure that environmental protection doesn't get in the way of needed housing production, so that it's really applied in more rural settings without infrastructure, that the focus there is really on protecting wetlands and natural resources, that in more urban or more dense areas, in other words, growth areas, that you're really pushing for housing production there and focused on density, which also has many great environmental benefits that go beyond simply having low density or something like that. So that's that one. All right, and here's the third category, which is financial tools and funding sources. I think that we have 6 here. So first one is to explore opportunities to create gap financing for affordable housing. So one example of that would be to establish an affordable housing trust. The city is interested in taking that path, and that will allow you to create a dedicated, renewable financing source for housing initiatives. It's not going to become the primary vehicle for financing a development project. It's about closing the gap so that a project that is infeasible might become feasible because of the existence of that support. So again, each one of these is like, you can really go further down the road, but in the interest of this high-level presentation, I'll keep moving. Next is on zoning policy, which is sort of dovetails with the previous recommendation, but it's to explore zoning options to require or incentivize a share of new units to be affordable, offering flexible compliance options, including on-site units or contributions to allow mixed income outcomes with broader funding needs. So again, this is really about incentivizing. Next, public-private housing partnerships. This could be interpreted in different ways, right? You have project-specific public-private partnerships. You also have more general public-private partnerships. For example, roundtables where you're meeting with developers so that you sort of break down that barrier between the city's decision makers and the private sector, because the private sector is really plugged into great ideas and innovation and new ways to get projects moving. So this recommendation is all about, breaking down that barrier, increasing the dialogue and increasing the partnership and collaborative energy between the public and private sector, and how can projects tap into things like low-income housing tax credits, home funds, CDBG funds, and all the different things that the public domain can do to support the private market, and vice versa. Next is to reinvest in existing housing. We wanted to include this because there's great value in producing new buildings that have new residences in them. But we don't want that to take away from the inherent value of preserving the existing buildings that you have, because that's what makes Saco Saco in many ways. So the idea here is explore different avenues of supporting adaptive reuse in existing buildings, because often that's financially infeasible, or it becomes increasingly less appealing to developers who can demolish something and build something new. So the question is, what can be done through tax credits, relaxed parking standards, and things like that to make sure that the incentive to preserve a historic structure, whether designated or undesignated, don't go away because of all the other things that you're doing to support new construction. TIFs. Okay, so Saco has one or more TIF districts now, and I think that they're focused on senior housing, if I'm not wrong. So the idea here is to explore other ways that TIF districts could be leveraged. You know, the state of Maine has the use of TIF districts here is always really impressive to me. I work in Massachusetts a lot, and Maine. In Massachusetts, you don't see it used that much, but here in Maine, it's really. I think that there's a recognition of the value of capturing the value within a designated district and pouring it right back into the same district to boost that district. So TIF districts, I think, are valuable. There are specific affordable housing TIF districts that can be applied. So the idea here is to consider whether or not those could be useful for here in Saco. And then next, perhaps last, yes, I think this is the last one. This is just a sort of bit of a catch-all recommendation, but it's about mobility and transportation and investment, because housing isn't only about the buildings that the housing is contained within, but it's about making sure that people can move around, especially when it comes to affordable housing. People who have limited means, that impacts their mobility, right? So there's existing programs here in Saco. So the suggestion here is to explore ways that you can continue to invest in mobility and make sure that people who live in affordable housing have access to mobility that can help them to move around to different resources and jobs and things like that, including potential transit-oriented development. That was a lot, but I'm curious to hear if anybody has any questions or comments or anything.
Great, thank you very much. Any council members or committee members have any questions or comments for Luke?
I'd just like to clarify just a couple of things before we jump into conversation. It's been very difficult to do this plan when all the housing laws are changing. So just please keep in mind that we are not going to unlock tons of density without really coordinating and analyzing how the state housing laws are going to work with that. And Luke and I have already had conversations about that, and we're on the same page, but I just want to clarify that. And then we have 10 TIF districts already in the city of Saco, so that would also require like a good amount of analysis to see how property could be put into different TIF district in the future. So I just want to kind of preface that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Edwards?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the committee for your fine work. I just had several things. One, I understand relaxing the parking requirements, but I would probably soft disagree with that a little bit, because families seem to have more than one vehicle, and as soon as their kids are able to drive, there's another vehicle. So what I've seen is that a lot of times there's more cars than were projected in the housing unit. So I would have to work that through. Affordable seems to be a moving target, so I'm wondering what the committee's sense of affordable is currently. Or, you know, we could talk through that, I guess. Also, is there land in Saco? I mean, how much land is there to actually be developed? I kind of feel that there is a crisis for housing in this area, but I just don't know how much is available. And from the few times I've seen developers try to go into an area, the neighborhood sometimes fights back and tries to micromanage that project. So I'm not quite sure what the opportunity is for development here. Thank you.
Emily, did you want to touch on any of those?
I'm just taking notes here, so
Okay.
if it's okay with everyone, we can take this into like a future conversation of the Long Range Planning Committee and then kind of respond after the committee can digest. But I really appreciate these questions and all the feedback we're going to get.
Okay, perfect. Anyone else? Councilor Arnon.
I want to highlight the question of affordability. I presume there's got to be a number that we've used in your analysis in some regard to make sure we've got that locked in, because at this point, in my conversations recently with general contractors, the cheapest you can build a 1,000 square foot affordable house is $400,000. Like this. So the concept of affordability is difficult to kind of manage. Do we have a strategy, second question, do we have a strategy for community buy-in in development? To expanding on the question that he had previously, the plan is great. We talked about the plan. The community at large says this is wonderful. But as soon as you start laying down the plot plan, and it's right next door to somebody else, there is always pushback. Have we developed within the plan a way to better manage public opinion by project? Not by concept, but by project. Because those tools will be valuable to us as a community as we're having people come in and present development opportunities. Last question is the growth projections. We're looking at 30% growth by 2042. Where does that number come from? Thank you.
Councilor Johnston?
Ladies first.
Thank you.
Councilor Hewitt?
Just a quick question. As a consultant, is there any municipalities or ways that people have increased density that you've seen to be successful and affordable?
Yeah, I think a lot of the different ways that I was presenting on tonight, it's got to be a mix. But I've definitely seen many places that have been densifying in very strategic ways, in strategic locations, preferably where there's places that are walkable and with transit. And the affordability is, as was already mentioned, is a moving target and increasingly difficult. But you know, it's just a question of the sort of 7-layer dip of all of the different incentive programs. If you look at the capital stack on an affordable housing project, it's really complicated. There's a lot going on because you have some investor financing. That it's closing that financing gap that requires a lot of effort and input and collaboration between different sources. So I think just generally speaking, the only way that you can tackle the increasing challenges of affordability is to have those partnerships and work with state agencies and Maine Housing to make sure that you're tapping into the right sources of gap financing. Are a few thoughts.
What's that, Councilor Hewitt? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. So I appreciate the plan or report, and I think everyone so far has had great questions. I think for those that have been here and those that are new, much of what's in this plan is what I've advocated for the better part of 10 years. So it's really nice to see it confirmed. I guess what I would say is I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here that I'm hoping that we can implement sooner rather than later. You know, specifically, I'll speak to the Housing Trust Fund. Last year during the budget cycle, I had advocated and council supported a budget amendment that set aside $200,000. I intend to increase that amount this year. What we're lacking is the ordinance still for the creation of the trust fund, which is something I'm hoping to expeditiously move forward so that money can then move into that fund. the densities that were in the report, specifically to the downtown, I had advocated for during the zoning ordinance revision. That, along with many other things, kind of got ground up in the meat grinder, so to speak, but I would still advocate for reducing the requirements for the minimum lot standard. Just, again, as someone that lives in the downtown, manages properties in the downtown, you will not see investments in these properties if you do not do this. It just isn't economically feasible. And I think it can be done. And a lot of these older buildings, you know, I think as our consultant has spoken to, we need to look to redevelopment there. As many of you know, the vast majority of the properties along Main Street, the third floors are empty. There's a variety of reasons, but one of the main reasons is because of the cost to upgrade those buildings to new code standards. You know, years ago, you used to be able to do a adaptive reuse for less than a new unit. Today, they're on par, if not more, because of those standards. I'm not advocating against the standards. I'm just saying that it's cost prohibitive, and we have to find ways to ensure that these units can meet the code and, you know, be developed in a way that's economically feasible. And again, I'm all about the idea of incentivizing those financial tools with an eye towards affordability versus just standard market rate housing. But again, something we can address at a later date. And the inclusionary component, I think we've discussed, or I say we, me personally, and other counselors, and the planning board for many years of having that, you know, percentage of any development being at an affordable rate. I think that's something that we should address. You know, parking, as I've said for many years, and as someone that manages several properties that has little to no parking, it's a challenge. And that's not to say we shouldn't go in a direction of reducing it. I just really believe we need to have a plan, primarily, I would say, a parking garage for the downtown if you're really going to look to going to zero parking standards. The reality is, while I would say that, you know, on the affordable side of things, yeah, you'll see a reduction in cars, but pretty much, I mean, all we have to do is look at our own driveways. Most people have multiple vehicles. And what you do by increasing those units is then you then flood the streets. And like I said, I can tell you it becomes a complicated, like, I mean, for lack of better words, at times I feel like a parking manager when I'm dealing with tenants' needs for, you know, addressing parking, whether it's winter storms or just overall. I mean, in my particular case, and again, I advocate for this, but at some point you will run out of partnerships availability. And as I was saying, you know, currently I'm able to partner with the surrounding property owner, but there's limited amount of parking with those. So just if we're going to consider that, and largely it seems like the state's kind of already made up our mind to some degree, but if we're going to go to a zero standard, I really think we have to have a plan in place and executed before we do that. And I think, again, as it's been stated, that the number one issue is cost. The only way you're going to get affordable housing in general is through partnerships. So I think leveraging the TIFs, however we do that, I mean, we currently have a downtown TIF. I don't know if we can add to that or have to create a whole new TIF, but it's something I certainly would advocate for. So those are kind of my high-level thoughts. I do like this idea. I wrote it down as kind of like a help desk as they go to the, this is what I envision anyway, as someone comes into the codes office or the planning office and they're looking for, hey, this is my project. I think it would be beneficial not for staff to say, well, do this, but kind of say, well, have you considered what you could do? And that way they're aware of, hey, and maybe I have a current 4-unit that I want to make a 6-unit, you know, and then you see those options for affordability or those tools, you know, before them. And perhaps staff is already doing it, but I just think that that would be, you know, a good component because I'm aware of, you know, several properties in the downtown recently that have gone through some level of renovation that, in my opinion, isn't in the best use if we're looking towards affordability. So the only question I had because I didn't see it. Tiny homes, how, based on your experience, how are those being incorporated in other communities? And is it being successful? It's something that, you know, we looked at during the zoning ordinance revision, but kind of left off to the side to see how it was implemented. But I kind of have thought for a long time that if you could take not even a large lot, but, you know, a relatively medium-sized lot, and you could implement that into almost like a tiny home subdivision, something like that. Have you seen that used elsewhere?
Yeah, I've seen that as something that's increasingly being built and filled pretty quickly. I guess that I most often hear them referred to as sort of cottage clusters. Okay. But that's certainly something that developers seem to like, because I'm seeing more of them, and I think that buyers like them too, because they often get at an important market, an underserved market, which is people who want to live in a freestanding house but don't have a lot of money to spend on it. Because some people, they want to live in a small unit, but they don't want to live in an apartment building. So there's a lot of people like that. For example, older people who want to downsize. You know, they live in a 4-bedroom house, their kids are grown, and they've left. But so they don't want to move into an apartment building necessarily, but they like the idea of having their own house. But most new houses are out of reach for them. So I really like to see cottage clusters being not only allowed in zoning, but encouraged by cities and towns. Because again, you mentioned partnerships. It's really, you can tweak your zoning to allow more things. But really, it's what we're always trying to, the message we're always trying to put forth to communities is that you got to be proactive. It's not just allowing it. Go out there, talk with developers, and sort of let folks know that you're open for certain types of development and that you want to see it in certain locations. You know, prepare a map with the specific, to the question of, are there spaces in Saco that can be developed? You know, isn't it already built out? Well, maybe it is, but if it isn't, then what are the locations that can be developed? What would be a good spot for a cottage cluster where you can build small units? So I guess I'm going beyond your question. My answer to your question is yes. I think that's a very exciting product type that you're seeing more of, and I think to get it built would require, yes, looking at regulations, but also really sort of putting the idea out there, because although it's increasing in popularity, it's still not that prevalent.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, because again, I had some of the similar viewpoints, and I have seen them implemented clearly warmer climates throughout the U.S., but I do think it's like an underutilized tool. But I know that there was a lot of reservation several years ago when they first kind of came into the law. So it's something that I would encourage council and the planning board to consider, because I think if done right, they can be implemented like anything else, and certainly would serve an underserved population.
Yeah, and some of those are for sale and some are for rent.
Rental, yeah.
Which is nice, that the idea of being able to rent a freestanding house. Usually when you think rental, you think an apartment, but that's another nice thing, is build to rent cottage clusters.
That's all for now.
Thank you. Councilor Gale?
So just to add on to that, I guess it felt like a couple of low-hanging items that I heard was the housing production tracking system. I think that would be incredibly useful to hold us and the community accountable for a goal of affordable housing. We talk a lot about that, but having something that's actually tracking it, I think would hold us all accountable to that. And then exploring the gap financing. I think that obviously when we're putting together the budgets, that's what the priorities are. So if we do care about housing, then we should budget that in. And then I guess just lastly, you'd mentioned in the report that you found Saco's housing stock is diverse. And based on that conversation we just had, encouraging and continuing that diversity, because I've heard a lot of examples, especially my time on the school board, about recruitment for teacher positions and others, that they want to come here, but they can't find something that fits their need, either rent or own. So that'll just make our community stronger as we work towards that diversity.
Thank you. Anyone else? Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we have about a year and a half ago, we had the presentation for TIFs, and we were told that the housing TIFs couldn't be created until that district was created when an affordable housing went in. We did not have a choice of where we wanted it.
When it comes to the TIFs, and just as stated, is that we do have 10 TIFs. If a development came in and says we're going to want to do some affordable housing and we want to go through the TIFs, it is actually through the main state housing, so it's kind of different. And you also go with 50 years on it, so you can really benefit as long as it stays within the housing. But you do definitely have to have that project in order to put it in a TIF district.
Great, thank you.
And just to piggyback off that, we are asking Phil Saucer to come out and do a refresher on the TIF 101 presentation. We know there's some new and returning new faces and one returning. So we're going to have him come out and we can ask these questions, and then Ryan Pelletier, Tracy, and I will probably be coming to you with more of a TIF strategy in the summertime for TIFs going forward for the future years.
Great, thank you. One of the things that I see a lot that I've always kind of thought that we needed to focus is, again, we are seeing an increase in the seniors, I'm going to say 55 plus, kids moving out, especially in the east side of the downtown, across the street. We're seeing the aging in place, that the houses, they're not able to take care of their homes because there is nothing for them to downsize to. And unfortunately, that's causing, when they are ready to either, if they've passed or they've moved to a retirement facility, those houses are now fixer-uppers. So if we can help downside, again, going with the smaller style unit, the single family units that are aging in place can downsize to, those houses may be able to turn over faster with less work and less money, because you still have a young couple going to buy that, and they could be anticipating 150, 200, 300,000 in just renovation cost as well to upkeep that house, because they're just not able, the previous resident just isn't able to keep it up, whether it's cost or physical ability. So as we are seeing our seniors, and we do have a very large population still in the city that would love to downsize, but they can't because we don't have them. And that would keep the reuse, keeping that house going, keeping it inventory, and keeping it moving along. Okay, any LRPC members commenting, weighing in? Oh, Councilor Edwards.
Yeah, I thought of something while other people were talking. The other question I think would be useful is to know what our current capacity is for more housing, like, do our sewer system, the electrical grid, the water, are we ready for more housing? And if not, what will it take to bring those along so that we can adequately prepare?
Okay, last call. Anyone else? Oh, Emily, did you want to jump in?
We can certainly look at that as an LRPC group. It is very dependent on where somebody's looking to develop, but we can take all these questions back, so I very much appreciate this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate the work. Thank you. Okay, I would now like to officially call the City Council meeting to order at 7:14 p.m. Would like to make note of all councilors present this evening with the addition of City Administrator Pelletier. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Great, thank you, everyone. Moving on to item number 4, there is nothing under general this evening. Item number 5, committee correspondence to council. Are there any committee members wishing to share? Councilor Hewitt?
I just want to announce the Dyer Library and Saco Museum is celebrating volunteerism. In Saco from April 7th through the 24th, the exhibit will highlight opportunities for residents and visitors to get involved in the Saco community.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Just a couple updates. So coming out of Traffic Safety Committee, I think as council is aware, the Route 1 road diet request that was made by Traffic Safety Committee originally submitted to MDOT was not supported for several reasons at this time. However, at the prior meeting, I believe it was 319, committee heard testimony from various abutters, which, again, in my opinion, I'll say, I think they had various degrees of merit to their concerns. But after being provided with an update from MDOT by Director Moore, the committee voted in favor of continued discussions with MDOT to include a Route 1 road diet demonstration project. This would be a non-permanent project. It's actually the direction that we were originally moving in over a year ago, but that didn't come to fruition because of the paving schedule for Route 1. So, a long story short, I just wanted to say that, where traffic safety will continue to explore options for making this highly traveled key corridor and designated growth area a more safe route for multi-modes of transportation, and looks forward to working progressively with all stakeholders towards that goal. And then the Pepperell Park ad hoc. At our last meeting, I think we made substantial progress in the initial conception of a redesign for the park. Over the last 3 meetings, we've kind of systematically gone through the various components or elements that we collectively determined should or should not be a part of this redesign. I think there was some great dialogue and debate among the committee members and the residents, and feel it's been a very open and inclusive process, probably more so than our general committee meetings that we have. It really has been a lot of feedback from the public at any given time. But I think our next meeting, and as we move forward, we're really targeting creating the tiers that we were asked to present as far as, say, the gold, silver, and bronze plan to council with cost estimates. So I would say that, that will be coming forward probably later this summer. And then just lastly, to the public, there is a brief survey that's open until 4/13. I would encourage the rest of the council to also take that. That can be found on the Pepperell Park ad hoc committee page. It may be other locations too on the city website, but I definitely saw it there. And it's just seeking general public input, and I think that would be valuable as we move forward. So that is all. Thank you, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Just to add on to the Pepperell Park Committee meeting, there is a survey out till April 13th that residents can go in and put their opinions and concerns or what they would like to see in the park as well. And that you can find that on the City of Saco government Facebook page. Councilor Ronan?
Yes, many thanks from the Shoreline Commission. The wave gauges that were approved by council have been installed. I believe we've got measurements coming in shortly. He's not looking. About a week or so before they start launching out. But again, many thanks from the Shoreline Commission for approving that. We're looking forward to some really important data coming out of that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to item number 6, that is public comment. If you would like to address council, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
I'm David Plavin. I live at 36 Lower Beach Road in Saco. I'm the vice president of Save Our Shore Saco Bay, and I just wanted to have a minute tonight to thank the city for co-sponsoring the Saco Bay Symposium last Monday. It was held right here. Bill, you were a key member 7 years ago in getting it started, and I think you would have been extremely impressed and proud of what we did This time, we had an incredible panel of presenters and guests. A lot of information was exchanged, and again, the city allows us to use this auditorium, supports it. It's a great event. We had Peter Slavinsky, we had somebody from DEP, somebody from the Maine Office of Community Resilience. UNE is just, I thought, a highly informative session. I'm working on a recap of it now. Hope to get that out in a couple of days, and you'll see my opinion on it. But I really thank all of you, the city administrator, the mayor, Emily, all of the people from Saco that came, and hopefully we can work together with a lot of those partners that were here on that day, because we have a lot of partners and we have a lot of good relationships, and we need to utilize all of them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Anyone else wishing to speak, please step forward. Okay, not seeing anyone seeking recognition. Moving on to item 7, that is the approval of the minutes. Is there, the minutes for March 16th, 2026. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes for March 16, 2026.
Motion made by Councilor Doyle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Edwards. Any comment or discussion on the minutes? Okay, roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
Councilor Onen?
Yes.
Councilor Gale?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item number 8, that is the consent items, and there are 2 items this evening. Item A is an application for a solid waste permit with Troiano Waste Services, and item B is a massage establishment license for Rachel Moraes, owner of Main Salon Suites, DBA Giabello Salon Suites. Is there a motion to approve the consent?
Madam Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Motion made by Councilor Doyle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Any item that anyone wishes to move? Okay, roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
Councilor Onen?
Yes.
Councilor Gale?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to approve the consent items. Okay, that takes us to item 9, action items. Item A is 1 reading, grant acceptance for the fiscal year 2025 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grants, and that is Councilor Parks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City of Saco Police Department has been awarded funding through the U.S. Department of Justice's fiscal year 2025 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $11,612. The police department would like to utilize the funding for the purchase of 2 new cruiser light bars, as well as the associated perimeter emergency lights for a police cruiser. The cost estimate for 2 light bars and additional emergency lights is $11,615.10. I move to approve the acceptance of the fiscal year 2025 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, and further move to authorize the city administrator to sign the certifications and assurances by the chief executive of the applicant government on behalf of the city of Saco.
Thank you very much. Motion has been made by Councilor Parks. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Edwards. Any discussion or comments on the item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
Councilor Onen?
Yes.
Councilor Gale?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to item B, that is the first reading, the request to repeal existing credit enhancement agreement with Baxter and Cutts, and that is Councilor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On October 7th, 2019, after holding a public hearing, the City Council authorized entering into a credit enhancement agreement with Baxter and Cutts, LLC. The City and Baxter and Cutts, LLC formally executed the credit enhancement on October 21st, 2019. The agreement was designed to support the company's development of a 9,440 square foot facility. As with all credit enhancements, the benefits were contingent upon the company meeting specific terms and maintaining operations consistent with the agreement. Baxter and Katz LLC has since vacated and sold the building. Because the company is no longer occupying or operating within the facility, the conditions of the credit enhancement are not met. To formally terminate this credit enhancement, the City Council is asked to review and authorize the enclosed termination agreement relating to the October 21st, 2019 credit enhancement. Be it ordered, the City Council approves the first reading of the enclosed termination agreement relating to October 21st, 2019 credit enhancement agreement, and to further schedule the public hearing and final reading on April 13th, 2026. I move to approve the order.
Thank you very much. Motion has been made by Councilor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Doyle. Any discussion or questions, comments on the item? Okay, not seeing anyone. Councilor Edwards?
Oh, can I vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
Councilor Ronan?
Yes.
Councilor Gale?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next under new business, we do have the fiscal year 2027 city budget presentation. We are going to take a quick 2-3 minute recess while we have staff get ready. Thank you. Welcome back. So we have joining us our administrative team who will be presenting us with the 2027 budget. Administrator Pelletier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. It's a privilege and honor to be here this evening presenting my first budget to all of you. As you know, I arrived January 5th, so this Sunday marks 3 months that I've been here in Saco. I can tell you, though, that the budget process started long before I got here with the folks sitting behind me and in the back of the room, and really put in a great deal of work preparing this document for you. I hope you've had a chance to look at it briefly, and I know we'll have a lot of conversations moving forward, but an immense amount of work, long nights, weekends, has gone into putting this budget proposal together for your consideration. I want to thank the ladies here to my right, Judy Blanger, Emily Cole-Prescott, and Samantha Bryant from the finance team, who have really put in a lot of the effort into coordinating the budget presentation that you're going to be seeing this evening. I get the fun job of being the cheerleader of this group, but the real hard work is done by them, and again, the department heads who support all of us. To go over the agenda for tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the process of developing the budget. We're also going to give you a bit of a high-level overview of some stats related specifically to Saco. We'll then get into the budget overview itself, talk about the calendar. Tonight is the start of the budget process, but as some of you that have been here for a while know, this is just the start. We have quite a bit of work throughout the month of April and into May to finalize the budget. And lastly, we want to also highlight how the public can participate in the budget process by submitting questions, participating in the public hearing, and so on and so forth. So moving on into the budget process, as I mentioned earlier, this actually began back in December with department heads submitting their requests. That's followed by several meetings between myself, Deputy Administrator Prescott, finance team, and the department heads, each individually presenting their budget proposals to us. And we do a lot of back and forth. Again, a lot of time spent analyzing the data, looking at headcount positions, things like that, what the real needs are of the city to continue the operations, and also to recognize the growth that the city of Saco has seen over the last several years. I think it's important to highlight that this evening. Again, that's a lot of weeks of work with the city administration and finance. And the budget presentation itself actually began 2 weeks ago with Superintendent Ray here presenting the school budget. And tonight's overview by city administration adds to that by including the amount that the local taxpayers have to include in the budget for their portion of the school, but also the operating and non-operating expenses of the city, as well as other outside facets such as the county tax. There'll be several presentations in April. The schedule we'll go over with you in a little bit, but each department will be coming in and presenting their own individual budgets, as well as some of the outside agencies that the city has supported in the past as well. Following that process, we move into May, where a public hearing will be held, another opportunity for the general public to comment, offer their thoughts on the budget proposal, and a final adoption in mid-May by the City Council. Next, I'm going to refer to the Saco stats, and Emily will be giving us an overview of this portion.
Thank you. And every time we try to come to council with a presentation, we try to give some data snapshot of where we are as a community. And this is a snapshot of the dollars and what we look at as a community when we look at different aspects of growth. So we continue to see new housing units growing at about 100 per year. We're usually in the range of between 100 to 125 new housing units every year. This includes single-family residences as well as condo units and other types of units. Local valuation is above $4.2 billion for tax year 2025, fiscal year 2026. The median home value for the data we have through tax year 2025, fiscal year 26 is $422,400. That's assessed, and then the median income right now is about $92,241. So depending on what data set you look at, these numbers are all going to be a little bit different. They're not apples to apples, but we try to give you a little bit of a snapshot of where we are in time. I'll hand it off to Judy now.
Yes, and good evening, Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry. Good evening, Mayor, and members of the City Council, the city staff, and the citizens of Saco. This is my second time around with the preparation of your annual budget for the city of Saco, and I just want to say before jumping into your proposed budget, it truly has been a pleasure working with Ryan and Emily and Samantha, all the department heads that are behind us, and who have made this process to go really smoothly. You're very fortunate to have such a great team of department heads that are full of knowledge and talent and dedication to your city. So we start by presenting to you the total FY27 proposed budget of $88,176,682. This is an overall net increase of $7,739,895 or $96, sorry, and or 9.6% over FY26. The total budget is made up of two major sections. We talk about the operating and then the non-operating budget. The operating budget makes up 44% of the total budget and are expenditures that are associated with your day-to-day services provided by your city departments. The proposed increase of $3.6 million or 10.6% over last year. The non-operating budget makes up 56% of the total budget, and these are expenditures that are associated with legal obligations such as debt service, county tax, and the proposed increase of $4 million or 8.9% over your prior year. As noted here, Saco includes transfers to other funds in the non-operating budget. And as you can see from the pie chart, transfer to the school department makes up the larger portion of the non-operating budget. So now we'll focus on the operating side of the budget. This total is $38,602,836 and has an increase of $3,689,000. This is 10.6% increase from the prior year. The chart on the right breaks out the percentage of each department of your operating budget. The general government departments is 15% of the operating budget, but this includes mostly your city hall services and administration. Public Works represents 17%, Parks and Recreation 7%, Public Safety, which includes fire at 15%, police at 18%, and general government at 25% of the total operating. This is where your personnel fringe benefits are budgeted, and we will dive deeper into that in the next few slides. We also included here the supported entities, and Ryan would like to explain the process and next steps here.
Sure. So as the council might recall, it was directed to staff to not include a recommendation in the budget for supported entities. So if you refer to page 190 of your budget book, you'll see that the column there for city council is left blank, and that's a discussion it's been had. For illustration purposes here, we have included the amount that they requested so that we can project to you a proposed mill rate. Had we not included that, it would have thrown off the mill rate calculation. So that's why that number's here under this column, but if you refer to page 190 in your book, you'll see that it is left blank for further consideration.
So the operating budget on this chart here breaks it down further into salary and benefits versus other operating. And other operating expenses support the individual departments. Being an organization that provides services to citizens, your business owners, and visitors of Saco, it is reasonable that salary and benefits is the bigger piece of the pie, so to speak, when we talk about the operating budget. Salary and benefits are proposed to increase by $2.7 million, or 10.8% over last year, and include some additional positions that Ryan will go over.
Thanks, Judy. So this budget does include a proposal to fund 7.5 total full-time equivalents, with 7 of those being funded in the city's operating budget and a half-time position being funded in the school budget. Those positions are a network and security administrator in the IT department, a patrol officer in our police department, a plow truck driver in the public works department, a life safety inspector in the fire department, 2 facilities positions, custodian maintenance workers. That is, one of those is the position that is funded half by the school, an electrical inspector in the code department, and then on the city side as well, a part-time headcount increase of a video manager for the police department. Some of the cost drivers related to personnel that's included in this budget includes cost of living adjustments per our collective bargaining agreements with the unions. We do have one current collective bargaining agreement that is still under negotiation at this time. It should be finalized before the end of the fiscal year. But there's a dollar amount that's included in anticipation of that contract settling before June 30th that's budgeted in payroll contingency, not in the department that it affects. And as I mentioned earlier, the headcount increases within the department budgets that were outlined in the previous slide. And then finally, included in this personnel costs is a new account called Leave at Termination, and I'm going to have Judy explain that new account.
Yes, so one of the most difficult areas in budgeting is to plan for payouts for retirees in accordance with their collective bargaining agreements. Without their intent to retire in writing, it's hard to know who's going to retire, when, and how much that cost is going to be. But we do have a number of fire and police personnel currently that are eligible or will be eligible by the end of this fiscal year as well as into FY27. So what I've experienced here in the last couple of years is when we have these large payouts, it can really throw off a budget for an individual department. So what we'd like to try to do is implement some new strategy, have further discussion with the City Council on how to roll this out long term. But for right now, we put in our budget a line item called Leave at Terminations not associated with any department that will provide some costs of anyone who is going to be retiring and discontinuing their services with the city. So we're in early stages of implementing this mechanism to account for these retirees. So,
Can I just add to that?
yes.
This is for payouts of vacation, perhaps sick time, things like that, when they separate employment. And as Judy said, that has previously been absorbed within the department. You hope to have a good year where you have a surplus within that department for that to happen, but it's really a tricky situation when you have folks that might retire and you haven't properly budgeted for that in the department. This will eliminate that by having a dedicated fund to cover those when people do separate.
So fringe benefits are associated with all the personnel costs. Salaries, overtime, and stipends are budgeted within each department. However, the benefits are budgeted altogether here in the general administration section. This was the year to analyze and realign some of these costs to more reflect what is happening in the organization. Increases in these benefits also include the costs associated with the 7 new proposed positions that the city administrator went over. I'd like to point out, though, specifically health insurance. This is a tricky area. The new rates for health insurance will not be provided to us until the fall, and the new rates will be effective halfway through the fiscal year in January. They're on a calendar year. So this makes it challenging to know what is the most appropriate budget level. We don't want to come up short, and it is expected that the new rates, from what we're hearing, could be substantially high. Other operating impacts outside of salary and benefits makes up 28% of your total operating budget. And for fiscal year 27, the proposed budget represents an increase of $955,723, or 9.9% increase over 26. I've highlighted a few of the impacts facing the fiscal year 27 proposed budget here. Software increase includes inflationary costs for software maintenance and security software implementation scheduled for the upcoming year. In addition, this increase includes $135,000 of the CAD RMS funding through the police operations as a result of the MOU the City Council approved last January with the City of Biddeford. General assistance increase is following trends over the last few years, and the increasing trends has affected communities across Maine. I will note that the state of Maine does reimburse the city 70% of these eligible costs, and these are in the revenue side of your budget. The property and liability premiums have increased over the last year, and funding in FY26 will be a little underfunded, so the FY27 budget will adjust for what we anticipate the cost will be for the next year. Solid waste disposal costs include an increase in tipping fees, curbside collection contract increase in overall disposal costs and hauling fees. And in addition, the household waste collection costs have increased due to more and more households engaging in disposing hazardous waste responsibly. And again, supported entities, the request is included here for the mill rate calculation purposes. So now we'll jump over to the non-operating side of the budget. Non-operating expenditures consist of funding required for expenditures that are not directly attributed to the day-to-day operations, but are legal operations and transfers to other funds. Debt service bonds and lease purchases made by the city. This is general fund only and does not include debt associated with the school department or the water resource recovery department. This increase does include, however, lease payments for vehicles listed in the capital improvement plan earmarked for purchase in 2027. The following slides will provide more detail on capital outlay and county tax obligations. In regards to transfers, we talked about the school department earlier. This increase is just under $3.3 million, and the TIFs remain the same funding as last year for this proposed budget.
So at this time, York County has not finalized their budget, but I did have a conversation with the county manager a couple of weeks ago. He did provide me with this estimate of $1.8 million. You can see the trend here for Saco has been increasing over the last several years, and that is attributed directly to the increase in state valuation that Saco has experienced. And it's in proportion to all 29 communities in York County based on prior year state valuation. Next slide gives Saco's proportion of the county tax in relation to the other communities located in York County. You'll see that Saco's assessment is 6.41% of their total obligation. And that Saco ranks as the 6th highest contributor of the 29 communities in York County. Next, we'll have some discussion about our capital outlay, and Emily is going to present this to the council.
I'm really excited for the work that's gone into the capital improvement plan this year and for the work of our director, Public Works Director Travis Moore, and our Deputy Finance Director Samantha Bryant. They did an excellent job working with all the department heads, and I want to thank all the department heads as well for really nailing down and drilling down into what they needed while making sure to continue to invest in our infrastructure. So as we all know, Saco's comprehensive plan calls us to invest in the infrastructure and to continue to make that investment as the community grows. So this year we'll see a net change of $413,986, or a 15% increase in the capital improvement plan. There's a lot in there, and you'll see some highlighted projects as well, and I'm looking forward to the presentation that Director Moore and Deputy Finance Director Bryant will give us later on in this budget season. Anything to add to that?
Sure, absolutely. I'll second that sentiment, and that definitely really looking forward to having a chance to present to City Council and the Mayor and the public the capital improvement plan along with our Public Works Director.
So this concludes our expenditure side of the FY27 budget, and now we'll shift to your estimated revenues. So property taxes, according to this pie chart that's on the screen here, property taxes is the largest portion of revenue to fund all the services, including the school department and legal obligations of the city, and makes up 78% of the total revenues. I just highlighted a few areas of the other sections of the revenues. Local fees, license and permits is your next highest category, but represents 8%. We will estimate an increase in this particular area. This is mostly made up of motor vehicles, which we're seeing constant increases in motor vehicle registrations. This is clerk fees and building permits and things alike. The other local services represent an increase about $67,000. This is more associated with reimbursements for our school resource officers, and other like sale of city property and things of that nature. I just want to point out, though, that all these fees are detailed, and the fee schedule is listed in the budget book beginning on page 26. Another area of increase is your interest and penalties, and this is mostly made up of your interest earnings. And then we'll switch to state revenues.
So this next chart is just a way to illustrate what Saco's facing in regards to that pressure on increased state valuation and how that really drives your revenue sharing. Last year, Saco received $4.6 million in revenue sharing. That money by law has to be used as part of the commitment to reduce property taxes. And you can see with that upward pressure on valuation, you're dropping in revenue sharing this year by about $1 million. And that's very similar theme to what the superintendent talked about when he presented a couple weeks ago about that shift from state funding to local funds in the school budget. It's the same concept, just on a little bit smaller scale on the city side, but nonetheless a significant amount of revenue to make up. This is a reflection of the Treasurer's Office estimate in, I want to say, February or March. There probably will be one more release of estimates by that office in July, typically is when they release another estimate. But regardless of the amount, if it does change, the full amount has to be used when it comes time to commit the taxes later on this summer. So it is subject to change, but that is the most recent estimate available at this time.
So the next slide is very detailed, and it's in reference to your fund balance. We have completed a while back your audit for FY24, so these are facts at the top of the page. Below the FY24, and I'll go over these without going through every single number, but some of the highlights on this page of where we ended. But what I wanted to point out is that the city has an ordinance that requires the unassigned portion of your total fund balance to fall between 8.33% and 16.67% of the following year's budget. So on the top here represents the audited financials FY24. You had funds put in committed fund balance, assigned encumbrances, use of fund balance for the following year, and your unassigned fund balance was at $15,782,302. Total fund balance represented $17,786,104. So with that said, because it's based off a percentage of the following year budget, I represented here your final FY25 budget of $73.6 million. And so your audited unassigned fund balance falls into 21%. So there were subsequent events that took place after that close of FY24. The FY25 budget process, we had a couple small supplemental appropriations during that time. And then also the City Council had voted to start doing some long-term planning and reserves, and they voted to commit $500,000 for future infrastructure projects and $200,000 for affordable housing. Now, we're still in the process of closing FY25. I didn't feel comfortable to say that there's no surplus, so we put in a number here to kind of gauge what we might be looking at for the unassigned fund balance number. So we have $1.5 million. Now, just keep in mind, this is unaudited. This is a rough estimate at this point. The 26 budget process, we also used $951,650 to move to the budget process. And then there was just some other small supplemental appropriations. The unaudited, now assigned fund balance I have is $15,551,000. So the final 26 approved budget was $80.4 million. So this projected unassigned fund balance falls into at 19.3%. So that's above your maximum that you have, but we got to keep in mind that this 27 budget also includes another $951,000 use of fund balance to help offset the tax rate. So we still have a lot of work to do with FY25 and coming up with the final unassigned fund balance.
So all of that leads to the mill rate, and the mill rate is calculated by your total expenditures minus your non-property tax revenue divided by your assessment. That's in very general terms, obviously. But this chart here shows you that back in FY24, your mill rate was 14.75. It came down to 14.05 in 25, and it creeped back up to 14.20. With new valuations and the use of some of these non-property tax revenues, we're proposing that this, as proposed, this budget would result in no increase in the current mill rate of 14.20. I think the next slide just kind of gives you a calculation of an individual tax bill. Again, assessed value of your assessed property divided by 1,000 multiplied by the 1420 equals what an estimated property tax would be. And so the example we're illustrating here is the median single-family home in Saco for the fiscal year 27 is $486,000. If you divide that by 1,000 and multiply it by 1420, the mill rate, the resulting tax would be $6,901. Obviously, if your value is less than that, it's going to be less than that amount, more than that. And again, this is just on single-family homes. It's not illustrating commercial properties or anything other than that. Part of this evening, though, we want to just highlight for the public that there's a lot of great information on our website. And if they go to the sacomaine.org website on the assessors page, there's a homeowner's guide to property tax bills link there. It's really good info, and I'd encourage the public to look at that. And the final slide here on the mill rate is a 10-year history to give you an illustration. Back in 17, kind of stayed flat right around the 1938 range. And then you saw post-COVID, valuations started increasing, mill rate started decreasing down to where it is today. I think this is a really good reflection, however, of Saco's continued growth as a community and a place that people want to call home. And lastly, I'm going to turn it over to Samantha to walk us through the calendar and process for this budget cycle.
Sure. So public participation is a really important part of this process, and public feedback is certainly always welcome. So we have a series of meetings coming up in April and May. Specifically, on the Mondays here in April, other than Patriots Day, the department heads are going to come and give an in-depth presentation on their budget, what they're looking for, what's going on. I'll speak for a minute. This information is on the city website, but just I'll verbally share which departments are presenting each night for the benefit of anyone who might be listening here. April 6th is going to be assessing, facilities, the police department, the economic development department, the city clerk, and Parks and Rec. On April 13th, we're going to have codes, planning, finance, the water resource recovery department, information technology, and fire. On April 27th, we're going to have communications, human resources and fringe benefits, public works, the capital improvement program, Saco Main Street, the Dyer Library, the Biddeford Saco Old Orchard Beach Transit, and age-friendly Saco. Then coming up on Monday, May 4th, will be when City Council will hold its public hearing on the total municipal and school budget. At that meeting, there'll be a workshop to talk through any possible amendments and approval of those budgets. On Monday, May 11th, is when City Council will vote to formally approve the new fiscal year budget, and that's going to include not just the municipal budget, but the school budget, the Water Resource Recovery Department budget, and the capital program. And then lastly, I want to point out and emphasize that the city has created an email address specifically for public comment and feedback on the budget, and that's going to be budget@sacomaine.org.
Thanks, Samantha. Again, in closing, I just want to really express my gratitude to the mayor and the city council for the opportunity to serve here in Saco, and also just really thank the team here at this table and the department heads behind me for their support to me personally throughout these past 3 months. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone, including department heads, for the presentation and the budget. So now, do we have any questions or comments? Councilor Hewitt?
First, great job. The mill rate staying the same is wonderful, because hearing that there was a decrease from the state funding was concerning. I just want to clarify, when you talk about $1 million decrease from state funding for schools, and there's $1 million on the city side, so we're decreasing by $2 million total?
I'm not sure what the decrease was on the school side. I can't remember that number. What I do remember from the superintendent's presentation is that there's going to be about I think it was a $3 million effect on the school budget for their local property taxes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any questions. Thank you very much.
I'm sure they will come.
They will come. We just got our books. Everybody will
Thank
start
you.
reviewing. Thank you, everyone. Okay, moving on to item 11, that is the administrative update. Administrator Pelletier?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few updates. The Ferry Road and Seaside Avenue Adaption Project update. The culvert intersection project has been advancing and on schedule. I think actually a little bit ahead of schedule after talking to Director Moore this evening, to reopen Ferry Road by Memorial Day. To date, piles have been installed to support the culvert. Concrete pile cap has been completed. The culvert has been installed and backfilling has begun. Following the culvert replacement, drainage improvements and raising of the roadway will begin. This additional work will take place into June, utilizing flaggers and alternating one-way traffic during the week. In addition, Maine Water Company is making improvements to the water main at this time to prevent additional work needed in the future. Public Works thanks everyone for their patience at this time, and this project will bring needed improvements and increase storm resiliency to this area of the city. Also like to recognize that March 17th was World Social Work Day, and we're proud to recognize 2 City of Saco staff members whose daily work supports community members when they need it most. We'd like to thank Maya Nevins, our General Assistance Administrator, who connects residents with Maine Department of Health and Human Services General Assistance Program, and Saco Police Department's Rebecca Lyons, who is the Community Engagement Specialist. She works on the front lines responding to individuals and families experiencing crisis. Please join us in thanking Maya and Rebecca for their dedicated service and their commitment to the well-being of our community. Reminder that leash law is in effect for Saco beaches on April 1st. As warmer weather returns, we're reminding dog owners from April 1 through September 30th that all dogs must be leashed and under their owner's control on Saco beaches. Each spring and summer, Saco's shoreline becomes home to nesting piping plovers, which are small, federally threatened shorebirds that rely on quiet stretches of sand to raise their young. To help protect these vulnerable birds and their habitat, please keep dogs leashed from April 1 to September 30th. Avoid entering any areas that are roped off, fenced, or posted as protected habitat, and stay at least 100 feet away from designated nesting zones. Thank you for your cooperation. Lastly, the Front Street boat launch work is continuing this spring. It's continuing as part of the Saco Water Resource Recovery Facility's resiliency upgrade. This project will help protect our critical infrastructure from the impacts of climate change, including sea level rise and heavy storm events, and the improved boat launch will be more durable and reliable for years to come. We will confirm a reopening date as soon as it's finalized. Thank you for understanding as we work to make this area safer, stronger, and more resilient for the future. And finally, upcoming council meetings are going to be held on April 6, April 13, and April 27.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the administrator? Okay, moving on to item 12, that is council discussion and comment. Any councilors wishing to share? I would like to throw out a thank you to all of our city staff and the volunteers who assisted yesterday with the 28th annual Mary's Walk. It went off without a hitch. It was a beautiful day, a little windy, but the sun was shining, and we had a little over 1,000 participants. And in the 28 years that Mary's Walk has been happening, we have raised over $5 million for the Maine Cancer Fund. So shout out to all the participants, volunteers, and staff that helped to put on such a great day. Thank you. Okay, item 13 is executive session. Is there a motion? Councilor Parks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Be it ordered that the City Council enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Subsection 4056C, Real Estate, Economic Development, City-Owned Properties, Chapter 81 discussion.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Councilor Parks. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Edwards. Roll call vote. Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
Councilor Onen?
Yes.
Councilor Gale?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to enter executive session at 8:07 passes at 8:07. I'm sorry, 7-0. And we will actually be meeting in the city administrator's office. All right, thank you and welcome back, everyone. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a motion to come out of executive session? Sorry, speeding the night up.
So moved?
Motion made by Counselor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Edwards. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Onen?
Yes.
Counselor Gale?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to exit executive session passes 7-0 at 8:19. Is there a report? Counselor Parks?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 15 is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Doyle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hewitt. Roll call vote. Counselor Edwards?
No.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Onen?
Yes.
Counselor Gale?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn passes 6-1 at 8:20. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.